So it's the winter, meaning it's triathlon off-season time, and you're a super keen triathlete, so you're going to do some strength training over the winter because everyone says strength training is one of the most important things that you can do over the winter, but you've never done it before, so you're not quite sure what to do. Well, boy, have I got the video for you. Yes, today we are talking all about triathlon strength training, and I'm going to give you all the key tips to get you faster for next race season. Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Josh, a medical student and triathlete based in London, and on this channel we talk all things triathlon training, whether those be vlogs, product videos or training tip videos just like this one. So if any of that might sound interesting to you, please consider hitting that subscribe button, as it really helps out the channel. But yes, today we are talking all about strength training for triathlon, and this is really going to be focused on strength training in the off season, mainly at people who haven't done it before. But if you are someone who has done a lot or a little bit of strength training before, I really think this video could be very beneficial for you still, because I think you're going to learn at least something and improve your already existing strength training plan. Like I hinted at in my intro, lots and lots of people say that strength training is one of the most important things that you can do in your triathlon off season, and I actually agree with them, and it's one of the things that I'm focusing on this year, and it's something that I always try and have a focus on over the off season. So we're going to break strength training down into 5 key parts. We're going to talk about why you should do strength training, when you should do strength training, how much strength training you should do, what exercises I would recommend to improve your triathlon performance, and how many reps or what does a session structure tend to look like. So let's hop straight into that and talk about why we should be doing strength training for triathlon performance in the first place. Well, strength training makes you faster. There we go. End of the segment, we'll go on to that. No, I'm kidding. Although it does make you faster, there are many other benefits to triathlon strength training, and I think we should dig into why it makes you faster. This might seem a little bit simplistic, but lots of triathlon performance is simply how hard can you put out power? How much power can you put out? When we're swimming, how hard can you pull on the water, moving it past you? Cycling should be pretty obvious. How hard can you stomp on those pedals? And running, how quickly and how powerfully can you hit the ground with each stride? No matter how good your aerobic endurance is, if you've got weak little noodle legs, no matter how hard you try and push on the pedals, you're never going to get the amount of power that you could have if you really worked on that leg strength, and you'll never quite reach that potential which you probably have for the amount of aerobic work that you do. When we do strength training, we're becoming a much better all-round athlete, and it's almost like a cheat sheet or a shortcut to be able to improve our power in all of our sports without necessarily having to put in more work within that specific sport. And I think the main reason that people recommend strength training to triathletes so much is because we don't tend to do it. We're really not that keen on doing it, whereas some other sports people, we look at rugby players or football players, spend a lot of time in the gym working on their muscular strength, whereas triathletes very rarely lift weights, and so it's almost underutilized in triathlon and really can show massive benefits if you're able to stick to it. So when should we be doing strength training as triathletes? And I think that's a really good question, and it comes with a maybe somewhat obvious answer, which is pretty much all the time, at least in my opinion. I don't believe there's a correct or an incorrect time to do strength training as a triathlete. However, we can optimize when we're doing our strength training. If you're someone who hasn't done a lot of strength training before, I would highly recommend waiting until the off season to do that, and that's for a number of reasons. Firstly, you're going to have a little bit more time in your life because most likely you're taking a small step back from triathlon training and doing slightly fewer hours in your 3 sports. And secondly, when you start doing strength training, you're really going to experience something called DOMS, or delayed onset muscle soreness. And this is just when you go to the gym, you haven't been in a while, and whatever muscles you've been working on, normally your legs, absolutely kill about 2 days afterwards. And so if we do that in the middle of our triathlon season for the first time, we're going to be failing or not doing workouts as well as we could do, whereas in the off season we're not worried about having really hard key workouts as much, so we can afford to be a little bit more fatigued and have a little bit more muscle soreness for some of our more important sessions. So I would say if you haven't been doing triathlon strength training already, start in the off season, but also be very mindful again of when you're doing your sessions within the week. I wouldn't recommend doing a really hard weight session in the morning and then having a really hard workout in the evening, although you can do that the other way around. So you could have a really hard run in the morning and do some weights in the evening. But I also wouldn't recommend doing a really hard session the day after a weight session, as you're likely just to feel that increased muscle soreness. And if you can avoid it, not doing that session the day afterwards will mean that the session the day after will likely be much better and you're going to get more out of your training. But be a little bit flexible, because getting to the gym, lifting weights in the gym and getting home from the gym takes a fair amount of time, and it's more important to do it than not do it because you worry you're not doing it at the right time. So how much strength training should you do? And I think it's incredibly individual, but I've got some general rules that I think are pretty good to follow. If you're just starting with strength training, I recommend probably only one session a week, and that won't feel too bad, but you really want to ease yourself into it and build up the habit of being able to go to the gym and lift weights before you try and push yourself too much, because if you hop right into it, again, you're going to experience those DOMs a little bit too much and you're going to really hamper the rest of your off-season training. However, once you're a little bit more experienced in strength training, and this is what I do personally, I like to go twice a week. By going twice a week, you either have a 2-day or a 3-day gap between each of your strength sessions, regardless of when you do them, and I think that's a great thing to be able to do. Give your muscles those time to relax between sessions and to recover, so that by the time you're next doing a strength session, you're pretty much ready to go at full power once again. You can do more than 2 sessions a week. However, I find that if you're doing more than 2 sessions, you're tending to eat into your other triathlon training, and maybe that time could be better spent just swimming, biking and running a little bit more than you otherwise have been. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty of what exactly I think a strength training session for triathlon should look like. We're first going to talk about what exercises I think that you should be doing in each session, and then I'm going to give you some general advice on rep ranges. When it comes to what exercises I think you should be focusing on, I think we'll break it down into 2 main areas: our general or our power lifts and our more sport specific lifts. So let's cover the more general ones first. And by general, I'm thinking of ones that allow us to lift pretty heavy weights but aren't necessarily really specific to the sports that we're doing. The 5 main ones that at least I think are really important are our squats, our deadlifts, and any variations are pretty much good for triathlon training, our chest press, our overhead press, and our bent rows. By doing those 5 core lifts, maybe not every single time, but picking 3 or 4 of those and making sure you're doing them every time you do a strength session, means that you're going to be hitting all of your big muscle groups. We're hitting all of our important leg muscles, we're hitting our chest, our shoulders, and our back for swimming, and we're not really neglecting anything. And I would recommend doing a combination of lower and upper body for triathlon training, as we're only going to the gym once or twice a week, and so we can't really commit to doing a more traditional split training program like you might see some pure weightlifters do. And then you want to accent those big lifts with some smaller lifts, some more sports specific lifts. So we might think about things like calf raises or hamstring curls for our legs, and specifically those are really helpful for running. Or we might be thinking about lat pull downs or pull ups to be able to work on our posterior chain and our lats, specifically to make sure that that strength when we're pulling through the water is really nice and we're really engaging our whole back, thinking about a similar movement from the machine to when we're in the pool. And I would just mix and match some of these exercises with some of the other ones that you really like doing, as I think it's important to still enjoy strength training even though you're a triathlete. Kind of mix and match until you're about spending 1 hour, an hour and a half in the gym. I think is a really good amount of time, because again, any more than that and you're likely giving yourself too much muscle soreness, or you're taking away too much time from your other triathlon training, which you could be better spent just getting more hours either swimming, cycling or running. And the final thing to touch on for the specifics of the triathlon strength training program is rep ranges. I would always recommend doing a warm up and a cool down with just the bar weight or a smaller weight, but when you're hitting the weight that you think is appropriate, it's important to keep in mind a few key things. As you're beginning your off season, I would recommend doing slightly more reps. So I'm thinking 10 to 12 reps and then 3, 4 or 5 sets. And as you progress through the off season, getting towards race season, I would decrease the number of reps towards 6 or 8, and I would increase the weight. So you're lifting more, but lifting it less. And this will really help build that strength that you've already started to build by doing some slightly lighter weights with less reps. You're really ready to do a really good job when you're lifting heavy later in the off season. However, I wouldn't lift too heavy. I'm not thinking 3 rep maxes or anything like that. I think that's a bit too much, and I think it will take away too much from your other triathlon training. So there you go, you know everything you need to get ready for triathlon strength training in the off season, and you're going to be absolutely flying when it comes to race season next year. If you want to see more videos like this one, please consider subscribing to the channel, and if you found the video helpful or you enjoyed it, please hit that thumbs up as well, because it really helps out the channel. On screen now, I'm going to leave a link to my off-season video where you can find the other things that I recommend doing in your off-season. But until the next time, I'll see you in the next video.